All right, that's actually my dog Charlie barking over the opening music. That was created by my former bandmate Dylan Mitchell. That ushers in every new episode of the Rocker Dog Podcast, the show that talks to people in and around the music world about their dogs. I'm your host Tim Dill, and when I describe the show the way I just did, it can only mean one thing. We have a music industry insider as a guest, and today we are happy to welcome Uli Salazar to the show. Uli is the Director of Marketing and Artist Relation for Ludwig Drums, and this is his adventure-loving Rocker Dog.
Our Rocker Dog here in Chicago, Illinois is Data Salazar.
I like it. And what kind of dog is Data Salazar?
So my wife and I, we sent out to do a DNA test. So we know exactly what she is, which is awesome. She is 54% German Shepherd, and I think it's like 14 or 16% Beagle, and the rest super mutt. So she's kind of like a doggy cocktail.
Okay. It's funny because you look at her and you definitely go German Shepherd. And I thought for sure with her hair there'd be some wolfhound.
We get terrier a lot, which I think there's definitely some sort of terrier because she's got a very wiry coat and she's got like a little beard that grows out too.
Yeah.
Pretty cute. But yeah, so she's small considering she's got German Shepherd in her. She's like 35 pounds or so.
Oh, wow. And what's her backstory? Where'd you get her from?
So we got her from a rescue called Pal's Place here in Chicago. And I was one day just kind of scrolling through Pet Finder while I was on the couch, just seeing, wishful thinking, you know. We had lost our last dog about a year or so by that time. And so we've both grown very fond of dogs. And I, in particular, house obviously doesn't feel the same after, you know, you spend so much time having dogs. And so, yeah, I was the first one to kind of go after it. It was funny because my wife, I'm allergic to both cats and dogs, and at the time we still had our cat, and my wife never pushed it because she knew our last dog was basically like it was her move, and she decided on it, and we got a more purebred German Shepherd, and they shed like crazy, of course. And so she's like, I got the wrong dog for you. So she really felt guilty about the allergies and stuff, and I dealt with it. I love dogs. I don't mind it, but it does suck, of course. So she never pushed it, and it was me that kind of instigated the whole thing and started. And so yeah, I found Data came from a litter of 3 puppies that were found at an oversized facility in Kentucky. And I guess this lady has like an agreement with them that, you know, they go back and forth, and she helps them out with capacity issues that they have. So she brought this litter of 3 German Shepherd puppies, and that's super rare to find, like, you know, as in a rescue shelter, like German Shepherds as puppies. And I was like, one of the things we always missed about our last dog, or we always said, is like, I wish we knew her when she was a puppy. And so now we got to have that experience with Data, which was really cool.
It's funny. How did you like that experience? Because the puppy experience is quite a different experience than with a dog that kind of comes in knowing a little bit.
100%. Yeah. And we've always gone for like the dogs from shelters, which you never know what you're going to get anyway. And, you know, just very opposites of the extreme between the last 2. So Primrose was our German Shepherd before, and she was about 4 or 5 when we got her, and just extreme anxiety that she never really shook. And so, you know, she went through some very unfortunate things. We don't know the specifics, and nor do I want to, but she had a lot of trust issues to work through, and comfort issues to work through. So that was really challenging. Like the first 3 months were tough, and then like I dipped. After like a month, I went to Australia for 2 weeks, and so my wife was all alone with a dog, and she's like, I think I'm gonna take this dog back. I just can't. I'm like, we gotta be patient. We gotta figure this out. And we're so glad we did. But it definitely reached a different kind of breaking point. And then having a puppy on the opposite side, it's just like, man, so much energy and just appetite to just destroy everything. And it's just like, yo, chill. I think we had crappy sleep for like 2 months, and that was kind of brutal. And my wife and I don't have kids and don't plan on it. And we were just like, man, if we did have kids, I don't know how we would make it, because it's like 10 times worse than this. So yeah, but now I feel like everything's a little bit more mellow. She's a year and a half now, so I think within a few months she'll she'll be a little bit more mellowed out and just like accustomed to, good behavior, I think so.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I saw both on your Instagram and your wife's the term data destructo.
Yeah, yeah, my wife came up with that because of course she destroys everything. Like I don't think there's a toy that the world can make that she can't destroy. Let's put it that way. And we always go after those like, those high quality toys that are marketed as like, oh, indestructible. Pff, she'll find a way. Always finds a
Funny. Well, I got to give a shout out to Pal's Place Rescue that you mentioned.
way. Yeah.
I went to their website and they are a particular rescue. Like I do some shelter volunteering, and we are an open intake. That means we take every dog that comes in. Pal's Place is a type of rescue that works with a shelter like mine, where when we're overburdened, they come down and take whatever they can and move it up north. So
Yeah.
very valuable work that they do.
100%. Yeah, and she's been doing it quite. I forget the lady's name who runs it, but she was amazing, and the whole process was just like super simple, super seamless, which was great and very helpful. And like we took our time through the whole thing because like I just kind of wanted to get a sense of what the allergies would be like. But it's also really hard when they're that young because they're still developing and it's not as impactful. So it was kind of mellow. Her shedding was pretty much non-existent up until like 6 months, and it's like,
Oh,
whoa.
do you have like Benadryl on a drip or something?
Yeah, I need to, man. Yeah, just kind of keep it going on IV the whole time. No, I do Zyrtec quite a bit, but data is definitely way less of an impact than Primrose was, which was good. So, and our cat passed away, sadly passed away a few months ago, and so I was more allergic to cats, and that's definitely helped my congestion out
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah, I feel for you. I'm allergic to cats, but not dogs. So data, seems to get around a lot. Many times I'm speaking to music artists and I
Right.
talk about touring. You and your wife seem to take the dogs wherever you go. So I'm curious, again, this goes back to social media, but Data's been hiking in Ohio, Tennessee, has walked through Central Park, has ran the streets of Charlotte and every dog park in Chicago. And I'm curious, does she fly?
No, we did a really awesome road trip last summer, and we drive a lot.
Okay.
But she's unfortunately not. She's too big to fly, and so I'd love to figure that at some point, and I would never check her under a plane by any
Yeah.
means. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we've definitely canvassed a good part of the Midwest and Northeast with her, which has been great. Like our last dog, like I said, her anxiety was just always through the roof. And the moment we would get in the car, she was so unsettled. So it was really hard to really do anything and go out. And we also felt extremely guilty leaving her behind because she'd be particularly anxious if we left her. Like we could never board her. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So like, staying her for her to stay at a kennel is just out of the equation. And I'd sometimes leave her at my brother's house and she was somewhat comfortable, but it would take her a few days. Like my brother'd be like, dude, she doesn't come out from under the bed. I was like, yeah, it's gonna take her a while. Just give her a little space and like, just keep an eye on her. But with Data, like as soon as we got her, we're just like, all right, let's get her used to being an adventure dog and like let's go out and let's get her used to and get her really well socialized. So the first week that we got her was kind of bonkers. Like timing did not make any sense. We had our 10-year anniversary trip booked to Costa Rica the week before we got her. So we went to go see her. Joe's like, we're gonna leave in a week. Like, that's kind of terrible. I was like, yeah, I know, but I don't want to lose out on this. Like, she's amazing. Like, we fell in love the moment we saw her, and I'm like, I'm not gonna like, they're not gonna put this dog on hold for us. Like, they don't know if we're flaky or not. I'm just like, I don't know. We got to figure this out. And so we decided to do it. And then in the week that we were gone, we're like, well, let's sign her up for training and like let's get her socialized and get somebody to spend a lot of time and attention with her. And then we'll pick up where they left off when we come back. And it could be a really good thing. And it was awesome. And so she still goes to the same facility where she got training. They do daycare there as well. It's called Canine University. It's just down the street from where we live, which is awesome. And they're amazing. They love Data over there. And she's always just hanging with her best buds out there. Like she's not an aggressive dog. She's not a super, chattery or barky dog. She just loves to hang, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, I love the photos of her sleeping, and the comment is usually just got back from daycare.
Yeah.
And that's, my sister has a big At the time he was a pit bull puppy, but he was still like 50 pounds. He would come back from daycare exhausted, and you just knew
Yeah.
he had the best time
Yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah. It makes you feel good too when you know that, they're able to really run around. And it's tough in the city, right, to just let them loose. So, making it an effort to find a place like that where they can really let loose and have a good time, like it's good. It's a good
Yeah.
habit, good thing to get into.
Now, with the comment about going to every dog park in Chicago, are dog parks, do they work well for you? I know a lot of times people complain about other dog people or just people not really
Yeah, for
keeping
the
their
most part.
dogs.
I mean, etiquette's pretty. We've been to other dog parks across the country in our travels and came to the conclusion that Chicago, for the complaints that we had, is actually pretty well maintained and etiquette's really good. My biggest complaint with like dog owners is just like thinking that they could check out on their dog when they're at a dog park and just flip through their phone for an hour.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, no, pay attention to your dog, interact with your dog, throw the ball or whatever the case may be, because you definitely want to keep it tidy and people just don't pick up after the dogs because they don't see their dogs going to the bathroom or something like that. So that's kind of the biggest problem. But a lot of times they're, feel like Chicago dog owners when they do go to parks, they're very mindful of just not just picking up their own dog stuff, but if they see something and they're nearby, they're like, oh, let's grab that too. And
yeah.
my wife and I always canvas because Data likes to get into things she's not supposed to. So there are certain parks where we know it's usually not great, but others where we can usually count on it being pretty clean and pretty well kept, which is good.
Yeah, it's funny, some of my artists that are in New York, they've got stories of just the most disgusting things that the dog can get into on a
Yeah.
New York street. Do you have any similar stories in Chicago streets?
Man, not in Chicago. Charlotte was a pretty bad scene. I was surprised. Like we went there and I think we were out within like 2, 3 minutes. There was several used condoms or at least just like open condoms, like.
Right.
And then I'm like, who's getting busy in a dog park? Like that was
Especially
like,
in Charlotte. Charlotte's such
yeah,
a,
just like that's not great. So and then just like a bunch of litter and trash everywhere of just like different foods. It's like, yeah, I don't want her getting into something that's like covered in, maggots and expired or whatever the case may
yeah.
be. And she had a very sensitive stomach as a puppy, but it's gotten better. So we had to be particularly careful about what she got into and any small piece of, non-specific dog food that was particular to her diet would just like ruin her guts.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Primrose. It seemed like she had a really interesting story. You did mention you adopted as her as an adult. Well, I'll say adult. You said 4 or 5. You guessed. And time-wise, were you married yet?
Yeah, yeah, we were married already. We actually, when we first met, we had another dog named Six. So when like the first week that I met her, she had just got a dog to foster, which was named Six. I'm a big dog guy, and we met, and she had just got this dog, and I felt like Six kind of brought us together. Like we had a shared, like she had a really bad story. She was in really rough shape. Like we knew the details, and so like when I first met the dog, like I fell in love and like I just like it was really heartbreaking, every time you hear those stories, like man. And so I kind of feel like the effort to collaborate on giving this dog a better quality of life kind of brought us together and like helped us fall in love essentially because this was a
Yeah,
thing now that we invested together. We got to do this together. And so that was really cool. And we moved pretty quickly in our relationship. I think we moved in like after 3 months, but I think I always say it was like it was six definitely brought us together. She was the conduit and everything else kind of fell into place from there, which was really cool. But unfortunately, she only lasted about a year before her health issues got the best of her. And so after she passed, we got Primrose, I'd say about a year after. So yeah, we usually don't wait more than a year, it seems like, to get another dog. We start, having the itch again. And then yeah, so we got Primrose, and by then we were already married for a few years.
and what was Six's breed?
I'm not exactly sure. She was like all I can say is she was a gold fluffy dog. She was like
Okay.
same size as Data, maybe slightly bigger. I don't know, she might have had some lab in her of some sort, but she was just like the sweetest dog on the planet. Like she was another one that like nothing phased her. Like when we got her, like she was just so sweet, very little anxiousness surprisingly, but like we used to take her everywhere. So she was another like what we call adventure dog. And so I used to do a lot of buying and reselling of vintage drums early
Hmm.
early in the days. And so we used to go on like picking runs with the dog, and she would sit in my lap, the whole time for like a 6 hour ride and just hang. Like it was great. And so we had a lot of really good memories with her because we did a lot of road tripping with her. But yeah, I never knew what breed she was.
Okay. Because I was curious, given Primrose was kind of German Shepherd, Data has the mix, you're not necessarily German Shepherd people. It sounds like it's just the opportunities that kind of came along at the time.
I think we kind of became German Shepherd people because of Prim. Like when we met Prim, it wasn't seeking out like a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
It was funny, and that's even a funny story in how we got Prim. So my wife got laid off from a gig. She was bummed out. And I think we rolled into the weekend or something. And for me wanting to cheer up, I'm like, why don't we go to the Anti-Cruelty, Society Center, which is like downtown Chicago, to another rescue. And I was like, let's just spend a day hanging with dogs and cats and whatever. She's like, all right. So like we went over there and we sure as hell came back with a dog. Like I wasn't gonna say no to her after the heartbreak she just went through. So she saw Primrose and fell in love, and that was her name at the shelter. We didn't even change it, and then it became a lot of stress and anxiety for like 2 to 3 months, and then it worked itself out. But having Prim definitely gave us a level of appreciation for that breed. I mean, the intelligence that they have is just really, really fascinating and really fun too. It's I don't know, I just it's something about it. And so when we were looking, like the thing that caught my attention mostly was just because I still missed Prim was a German Shepherd. So I
Yeah.
think consciously, subconsciously, I guess, German Shepherd people.
Yeah. You also mentioned she was like a guardian. Like, was she protective of you guys?
He was, yeah, very protective. Data's the same way. They're both really protective. So like as anxious as Prim was, like she knew she assumed the duty of like protecting, the house, protecting Joe and myself, and that was cool because it's not like you train a dog to do that, but they just kind of
Yeah.
know like, hey, this is my tribe, like very loyal dogs, but also very sweet. Like people are very intimidated by dogs like that, but it's just how they're raised and whether or not they're raised in a way that they interact with people and they're socialized well and things like that. So
Yeah. And can you put your finger on a turning point when Prim was, less anxiety? Just you mentioned how it was kind of a struggle at first with
yeah,
her. Was there a time when things kind of became better after that?
I would say when I stopped working a full-time gig where I was outside the house. So I used to work retail, and then would do a lot of freelance stuff where I'd be out, whether it was like teaching privately or doing session stuff or whatever the case may be. And so I left retail to focus on starting my own business, and I ran that business out of our where we were living. We had this live workspace, which is awesome. It was an old bar that was converted into a live workspace, and so I would spend 40 hours a week at home with Prim, just
Yeah.
hanging. So she became the shop dog pretty much. And so we bonded quite heavily. And my wife would always joke, she's like, that's your dog. Like she could care less where I'm at if I'm in the room. She's like, if you're in the room, like all eyes are on you. But I think that was definitely the turning, and that was probably like I'd say about 6 months away. I think we got her like in a September, and by like February, I'd quit my job, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do Damon drums. I'm gonna focus on restoring drums and doing repairs, and that's when I was home pretty consistently from like February through October. Then that's when Ludwig called, and then I wasn't home as much. And then me not being home because I was traveling so much for work, like we got closer because we missed each other more too. So
Yeah.
I don't know, we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time together, but we spent a lot of time apart.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you and your wife for putting in the time, not giving up on her. When you posted about losing her, there's a quote about your allergies. You said, I had no problem putting my quality of life aside to give her the most loving home she could ever have and deserved.
Yeah.
To me, that speaks volumes about you as a person and, how you treat these dogs.
Yeah, I always joke with my wife too. I tend to be an individual that puts everything outside of me first.
Hmm.
I come last, I think, in most any instances. But definitely when it came down to the dogs, for sure, and without Prim, like Yeah, it was never a thought to be like, I can't do this again. It was like after she passed, I'm like, all right, it was only a matter of when are we gonna do this again.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious that you mentioned it. What's kind of the mourning process between Prim and Data was a year or a little bit over a
Yeah.
year, but was there anything consciously like I need 6 months to myself to get over this, or
Not
it's just
really. I didn't really put out a target. And again, we still had Wednesday when we got Prim, so my allergies were still,
right?
pretty gnarly. And so her passing, I felt like it wouldn't do anything different. But I definitely wanted to try to get a dog whose coat didn't seem as like fluffy and shed prone as a standard German Shepherd. So when we met Data, we knew she was very mixed. So I was like, this could be promising. And so we were pretty optimistic. And for the most part, yes, she does shed a lot, but my breathing is like a lot easier than it used to be. Like I used to be really congested. I remember going to the allergy doctor and, just to ask, like, what could I do? Do I want to do allergy shots? And it's just so frequent that it didn't make sense for me. I was like, I'm gonna be home all the time. So to be home to
Yeah.
like make these appointments to get shots all the time, I was like, that's out of the equation.
Is the room you're in, is that like a no dog? Do you have any no
Oh
dog
no,
rooms just to?
yeah, yeah, it was dog and a cat in the bed
Oh
all
God.
yeah, every night. So I didn't do myself any favors by any means. So I am certainly very much to blame in regards to my suffering. But again, it's just like you want to be together. You're kind of you're bonded, and it's a relationship that you cherish and time that you want to take advantage of, especially like when I'm not being home all the time, like about that missing out on time. It's like, well, even though we're sleeping, we're together. Like it's just a level of comfort that I'm like, all right, yeah,
Yeah.
satisfied.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I wind down every show with what I call the Zoomies, and that's five fast, frivolous questions. Let's go
Nice.
there.
Yeah.
First one is, do you kiss your dogs on the mouth?
Uh, Top of the snout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough. Good enough. Question two is, did either Data or Prim have a theme song? Like, what would their walk-up music to the plate be?
Oh, Data does definitely have a theme song. Data's theme song is the the theme song of Data from. She's named after Data from the Goonies. I think it's just the Goonies theme. That's Data's theme song from the opening of the movie.
I remember the movie, but I'm only vaguely remembering the movie. I'll have to look that up.
It's my
Uh,
wife and I's favorite movie. And yeah, I was just obsessed with naming Data, or what is now Data. And she's like, no, he was a boy. That was like, doesn't matter. This is Data.
question three, since you handled the endorsements for Ludwig, who would your dog endorse?
Nerf, 100%.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Does Nerf have a division for dogs, or does it
Yeah.
just buy the
Yeah.
Nerf stuff and let them?
No, yeah,
No
they
way.
have a specific dog division, which I thought was genius for them to get into that as a category specifically.
Yes.
And she loves the Nerf balls. They don't destroy that quickly. We even got one of those like cannon things that like shoot the
Oh
ball.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
she
so
would
funny.
definitely be a Nerf girl for sure. Like they'll swag her out with like Nerf bandana and the whole works.
Yes, love it. Question four is, do you have a dog voice?
Yeah, definitely. It's like a little child voice, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. It kind of changes depending on like the attitude, like
Right.
she could be very sassy, I think. So there's like a sassiness to it. But yeah, definitely have dog voice. And my wife tries to match my version of the voice, and I was like, you could do your own voice.
Now, is that the voice you're, that's kind of a two-part question. I usually ask if you're using a voice when you're speaking to her. And the second part is, are you giving the dog a voice as if this is what they would sound like?
Both. And so we
Okay.
have so like I'll start a conversation with the dog that leads into her having a conversation with Joe, and I will speak as the dog to Joe. Like
Okay.
and so we'll have conversation that. So it's really bizarre.
I understand a lot of that's private, so I try not to push, but I like to get the little details.
Yeah, yeah.
And then finally, I ask if there's a dog organization or service that you'd like to give a shout out to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pal's Place for sure. And K9 University, we're there every week. And they're just fantastic. So anybody in Chicago looking for a great daycare kennel service, I couldn't recommend K9 University enough. They're always throwing events for dogs too on the weekends and summer. really nice facility. During the holidays, it was great too. Like you could rent like a VIP suite where they got like an isolated room that's super big, and like we had to do that. It was just like
That's
we were
awesome.
giving her the absolute best all the time.
I love it. Well, I'll
Yeah,
get some more information. I'll put that in the show notes for everyone to check out.
cool. Thank you.
Last but not least, another Ludwig question. Who's on the Mount Rushmore of Ludwig artists?
You definitely need old and new. So I think for old, I mean, number one is Ringo. I mean, this
Yep.
is the house that Ringo built. Without him, I don't know that. I mean, seriously, vintage black oyster is still the number one selling color 60
Wow.
years later, which was the color he had, when they played that television show. So Ringo, without a doubt, I think Questlove as well.
Okay.
More of the contemporary royalty, Alex Van Halen. And how many more people do we have? Like
Yeah, one
there's
more. It's
one
funny. I
more.
went online. I'm like, is it four or five? It's four. It's four heads.
Four heads. Okay. Last one
You
is
had.
the
I was going to spot you too, and you haven't named the
yeah.
second.
All right, go ahead. Give me your thoughts. Let
Bonham.
let the people choose. Oh yeah, 100%. Why was I blanking? That I should have said that after Ringo, because like yeah, basically Bonham throughout the 70s, it was the second explosion for us for the company. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely Ringo, Bonham, Alex Van Halen, Questlove. And then so like and you have those decades, right? Like pivotal decades. Yeah, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then like 90s and beyond.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. Well, Uli, this was fantastic. Thanks for joining me. I love hearing about everyone's dogs, and I'm glad. I was going to say our mutual friend. I only met him through this, but Eric Lederman threw your name out. I was like, heck yeah, let me check it out. So it
Yeah,
was,
no, I appreciate you reaching out. It was so cool that you came up with this concept. One of my favorite episodes that you did was the one with Bully.
oh yeah, that
My
was
wife and I are big fans of the band, and loved how much she incorporated the dog into, or both dogs into,
yeah her
the,
last
the
album.
band.
It was
Yeah,
crazy.
it was super cool. But yeah, very, very thankful and grateful for being a guest and getting to share all the things I love about our dogs here
Yes.
with you. And funny dog thing too. One of my colleagues, he's the engineer in Monroe. He actually kept a dog that he found loose outside the factory.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there was a weird Chihuahua mixed dog that just had no collar, nothing. Took it in, took care of it until something would turn up. Nothing turned up, so he just kept it. Named
That's
it Diddle
great.
after paradiddles.
I was that was my next question. I was like, hopefully, I had a name that was relevant to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
drum
100%.
world.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. Dogs make the world go around.
Dogs rock.
Yeah.